Welcome to the Accepted Authority, where we help you solve a common consulting growth challenge. I'm Andy Marmont, and with me, as always, is Greg Roworth. G'day, Greg.
Good, Andy. It's another exciting week.
Yeah, definitely. So we were thinking, Greg and I, we're in January. We're thinking about the year. Quite often, it's a good time to assess the effectiveness of our marketing, or at least what we want to achieve in this next 12 months. And one of the things that come up frequently for Greg and I is around marketing mindset. So what we mean is a couple of things. First of all, is actually having some goals. And what are they actually specific, but also can we measure them? And finally, are they realistic to where we are at the moment? You know, if we've done no marketing at all, are we suddenly going to get 20 leads a week? Well, to me, you've got to have some pretty whiz-bang opportunity to do that. I think what we want to talk about is, how to get in the frame of mind around when we go and we're doing some marketing, how do we set ourselves up for success from a mindset point of view? And then how do we ensure that we're actually open to receiving these opportunities? Because to me, it's fine to say, we want to generate leads and we want to grow our consulting firm, but have you actually thought about how that would work? You know, who's going to actually do those sales conversations? And then how does that work? How are you going to continue to nurture the people that maybe aren't ready to buy? So marketing mindset, maybe we just started off, Greg. What's your take on how do we, what's a good starting point around getting a really positive and, goal-orientated marketing mindset for this year?
Yeah, and a really, timely point to think about this. And marketing mindset to me means actually having a focus on marketing to get a result. We want to get a result. And for a lot of people in consulting firms, it's like, well, we want as many clients as we can get. And that's a positive mindset, but it's really not very practical because it doesn't give you anywhere to go. So to me, having the best marketing mindset is to understand, well, how many new clients do we really want? What's our target for new clients each month? Then you can create some sort of predictability about it and some sort of proactivity in terms of how you go about doing your marketing to achieve that result. So rather than just relying on referrals and hoping you get new opportunities, when you set out to predict and set a target for how many new clients we want each month, then it flows back to, well, how many appointments do we need to have to get those opportunities? Or how many proposals do we need to prepare to get that number of sales? And then, what do we need to do to be able to predictably get that number of opportunities each month? So it's really being positive, specific and proactive in your marketing and having that mindset that we're going to make things happen rather than just hope they happen.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good point, Greg. I think what we're saying there around hope things happen, that's the referral, maybe the partner strategy that you might have. You say, and I heard this last week, we've got a couple of great partners who give us work. And I was sort of thinking, well, what if one of them suddenly has a really other priorities in that month, or they decide not to? We don't want to put out all our eggs into particular baskets. So in terms of relationships, obviously alliances and partnerships are important. But if we're talking about something that we can measure and we can actually predict with some degree of forecasting success, then this is where we talk about what activities do we need to do, primarily from a digital perspective, to be able to then get that predictable growth, watch it grow, and do more of the things that work and change tack. So what you're saying around the mindset, like for me, that's really also thinking about doing and being prepared to invest in trying some different things that are going to ideally yield your results, but not doing it just for a month or even a quarter. You need to show, especially with things like we're talking about marketing and actually building our brand and reaching and having the amount of conversations that we want to aspire to. You need to have a plan that actually then allows for things like, well, maybe we need to change the message. Maybe we need to try this particular resource work in terms of capturing leads, or, this message over here, this webinar over here. So I think that, for me, mindset is actually focusing around being prepared to say, we're going to try something for 6 months. We're going to try something for 12 months, because that's often where you start to get that success. And I don't know about you, Greg, but me, sometimes it takes a period of time where you're constantly testing and assessing and seeing and adding things to then realize, look, I've got a formula now that's starting to work, and I can therefore accelerate that.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that approach is really good. There needs to be a level of time committed to the process to make, give it an opportunity to work. But I think within that, though, it's not, well, let's try something and hope it works in 12 months' time. We'll give it 12 months and again, I'm using that word hope, but it is about setting benchmarks along the way. What are our targets along the way? Like any other process you would run in your business in terms of delivery or, cost controls, budgeting. It comes down to what results do we expect when we start out a process? What are the components of the process that we need to measure? And the lag indicator may be, a number of clients we get in 12 months, but the lead indicator would be, how many new connections do we make per week, or how many or new proposals do we create each month? So when we set out with a target, and we can then predict, well, if we want X number of clients each month, we need to have X number of proposals, which means we need Y number of leads.
Yes.
We can start implementing the strategies, but if they're not achieving those benchmarks or those lead indicators, we can start to adjust and tweak those strategies and tactics before the time is expired and think, that didn't work.
Yes.
So I think coming back to, what do we need to make happen each month or each week to know whether we're on track towards hitting our targets, and being able to adjust our strategies and tactics as we go, so that we're not going 6 months ahead and, we didn't get any results. That process didn't work. That's the worst thing that can happen. But I see it happen so many times for, clients, particularly when they delegate or outsource their marketing to, a so-called expert who's going to get them the results, but then they don't.
Yes. Yeah, I think what you said there around the activity that we need to do, that's absolutely right. And recently, so we've been working on creating an activity planner that focus on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn activity planner that really helps you decide what kind of indicators, if you want to generate consistent, 6, 8, 10 consistent quality leads a month, then reach out to me or put a comment in the podcast. We can then, and we can sort of send that to you. But in terms of just the analogy I like to use, Greg, is a few years ago in my journalism days, I interviewed a couple of super coaches in the National Rugby League, so rugby league, and one of them was Wayne Bennett, who's widely seen as one of the best coach in the sport, and the other one was Craig Bellamy, who again is probably one of the modern greats. So winning 75% of their overall games over a 15, 20-year career. It's pretty phenomenal stuff. And the thing that I noticed when I spoke to them both was they never got carried away with looking at the next week. What they would do is they would stay very focused on the fundamentals. If we showed up each day and we ran hard, we worked on our tackling, our training, we were mentally prepared, we did all the little things, then the result, i.e. winning games and therefore the premiership or whatever the event they wanted to win, that would then follow. And I think it's the same with this. Quite often we get so carried away with, I want to achieve 50,000, 100,000, $1 million in revenue. But coming back to your point, you actually then, it's more important to work out, well, what are the sort of activities that we need to do to get there? So I love what you're saying there, and it's going to make a lot of sense, hopefully, for you as well, if you think about it that way.
Yeah, no, I love your analogies there, and the sporting ones are good. But I think, there's a basketball coach. You might have heard of him. His name is Wooden, in the US, who turned around the college teams he coached to very successful teams. That one particular team had an unbeaten record over a number of years. But his focus was not about the end result. They want the end result, but how do we achieve that end result? Focus on the fundamentals and practice, get better, employ consistency and discipline around the fundamentals, and then the skills improve, your results improve. So, rather than just have that end result in mind, it is still coming back to what do we have to do to achieve that end result, and focus on improving our abilities and skills around those fundamental areas like lead generation, lead conversion, our sales, conversations, all of those things. If we can improve our conversion rate on each of those, then our end result's going to take care of itself.
It's interesting because I've been doing the same exercise for Concurve, where I wanted to improve things like connection rate. I wanted to assess whether what I was talking about from a content perspective, but also asking people if they needed help. Is that all I needed to see if that was going to improve. So I went through a series where I looked at what are the key metrics that I needed to assess, and then basically did a sort of almost like an ABC test, where I would then go out and I'd say, okay, well, let's see if I was to say connect with 100 people, for example, 33 one particular message, 33 another, 33 another, and the winner would then get to have the privilege of being the message and the way that I would then carry out my connections and building relationships. And to me, that's how you want to look at this. Every point in your marketing approach can be measured, and if you can kind of get down, or at least give someone who understands a bit about that space the opportunity to look at and say, well, to get to a sale, what are the steps? Do you have a 2-step sales process? And then, but to get to that, how do you get that appointment? What are the things? Do they need to do they need to sort of understand who you are, maybe from your LinkedIn profile? So how do we know if the profile views are going up, for example? And then what kind of content is going to get them to understand our point of view? Is it maybe it's an ebook or maybe a video training or a model that you create? So again, all these things, what you're saying is absolutely golden, Greg. You think about it in a granular way. Obviously, you've got your 12-month vision, then maybe your quarterly vision, but then we want to break it down from a marketing metrics point of view and say, well, if we can achieve, obviously we're starting at ground zero, but if we can achieve a slight increase, each week, each day, then the sum of the parts is going to be, we're going to head in the right direction, at least have the confidence that this strategy is working.
Yeah. And I think, here, everything we're saying boils down to knowing the numbers. So at each point, what are your conversion rates at each point? And I think a lot of firms or leaders in the firms make the mistake when they think, well, we've got to increase our sales. Is the first question they ask is, how do I get more leads? And that's probably a natural place to start. But the reality is, if you know your numbers, and perhaps there's 3 levels of conversion: leads into proposals, and proposals into appointments, and appointments to proposals, and proposals to sales. What are your conversion rates at each of those points? With one particular client we were working with, they asked me, come in, let's have a meeting. I think it's time we upgraded our website. We need to get more leads. So I went in and said, well, definitely your website could do with more work, but let's look at how many opportunities are you getting now, and how many of those are you converting? So we crunched the numbers, and over the previous year, discovered that they'd actually done 101 proposals across the year, but had only converted 30 of those into sales. So we looked at that and said, well, do you actually need more leads, or could we get better at that conversion process?
Mm.
So we worked on that. How could we improve that sales process? And as a result of doing a bit of work on that, we actually increased that conversion rate from 30% to 50%. Now, that's I'm crunching numbers of 60% or thereabout increase in revenue across the year based on that alone, without increasing the leads, without changing the marketing, without having a better website. So it's really important to understand where we can make the biggest impact before we start to change any of our tactics. So, that to me, that really illustrates the importance of knowing the numbers and having that focus on where can we have the biggest impact, where can we make the changes that give us the results we're looking for.
Fantastic. Well, I think you've certainly covered some great points there, Greg, and I think it's a natural point to pause, and we can wrap it up and look forward to next week. So thank you, Greg. This is about the marketing mindset. Where can we find you if we want to know more about you or contact you, Greg?
Yes, well, just search Greg Roworth on either LinkedIn or Facebook. And my website is businessflightpath.com.
Fantastic. I'm at Andy Marmont on LinkedIn, or you can find the website is concurve.com.au. This has been the Accepted Authority podcast, and we'll see you next time.